Welcome to the third rewind show of the season, looking back at the last time we played our opponents for this weekend, as well as another, perhaps more obscure match from years gone by. Hello and welcome to Blue Monday, an Ipswich Town podcast. My name is Craig Fimbo, and joining me as ever for what is now a concrete, locked-in part of your Blue Monday build-up to the weekend is David Diamond. How are you, Dave?
Morning, Craig. I'm very well, thank you. Very well, thanks. Good to see you. Looking forward to looking back again as we did previously against Liverpool and Man City. Maybe no disrespect, not quite so glamorous opposition, let's say, but I would say, looking at the games we've got in mind, a couple of fairly entertaining games, I would say.
Yeah, some goals flying around. Looking forward to looking back. That could be our catchphrase for this show, couldn't it?
Just stumbled on it. Just like that, you know.
Like Sachi and Sachi. As you say,
like a bit of both, really.
We've done a bit of Sachi and a bit of Sachi. We've done Liverpool, as you say. We've done Man City. Now we forewent. That's right, isn't it? Forewent Brighton due to relative slim picking, shall we say, with regards to recent top flight matches against them. However, before we do head to a dwelling Southampton. When do you think, and to be fair, it may have been mentioned at the past weekend when we played Brighton, but when was the last time do you think we played Brighton in the top division?
I reckon the last time we played Brighton in the top division may have been in the top division, 80-81.
It was 1982-83.
Well, they got promoted again, or did they not?
Yeah. Apparently, first division, 2-0 victory, walk in Brazil, as ever, etc., etc. So it was the 82-83 season. And quickly, before we do start talking about Southampton, I've got the programme for that day.
Here we go.
You will get this, Dave. The cover star, one of the cover stars relates to Southampton and Ipswich, despite it being a match against Brighton. Now, you think about the timings. 1982-83 season, just had the World Cup in 82. Who might have links to Southampton?
It's gone. Mick Mills.
There
you go.
Mick Mills and Eric Gates.
So I'm just trying to think. So did Brighton stay up? So I know. Well, I said 80-81. I know because they were the first team to beat us in 80-81, Brighton, and then. I thought they got relegated that season, but maybe they went down and came back up. So perhaps, they didn't, and we did play them in 81-82. I just can't remember those games.
Well, it was around about their FA Cup time as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. 83. Yeah. 83, yeah. Man, yeah. So
it would have been.
Yeah. Oh, well, I guess they're decent. Yeah.
So yeah, so it's a little flashback. There you go, Brighton. There was our cursory last week's rewind show for Brighton. There, done. So we'll move on to Southampton. And as ever, if you were at any of these matches and you've got memories from these matches, then please drop us a comment and a like and subscribe while you're there. That will help us out. And we move on to the FA Carling Premiership, as it was back then, Wednesday, October the 24th, 2001. So the beginnings of that 2001-2002 season. As ever, Dave, number one in the charts. You are not in a million years going to get this correct. It was a song about how cannabis use, and we do not promote this, how cannabis use is degrading the narrator's quality of life.
I would say Afro Man.
You've looked that bugger up.
No,
wow.
To be fair, you gave it to me, didn't you?
Well, that is impressive, mate. Yes, you're right.
I got high, yeah? I got high.
Because I got high.
There you go.
Fantastic,
Good clue, though. clue.
So you can, there you go. So if you want to somehow timestamp it in your own memory, it was that time where we were all dancing to Afro Man
I probably
in our
wasn't dancing
bedrooms.
to it, but I can recall it. Yeah.
And as I say, it was the start of the season, so the table itself hadn't taken much form, shall we say, as you can see here, Dave. Although the bottom four didn't change too much between now and the end of the season, sadly. But yeah, as you can see, the formative table there on screen. Apologies for those guys who are listening on the pod feed, but out of those bottom four, only one of them survived the going down on the final
and
day.
it was our opponents, wasn't it?
It was our opponent, Southampton,
Shock.
who found themselves second from bottom, unfortunately.
Yeah. Very painful return game that season. But anyway, that's for another day.
Oh yeah. We'll worry about that one when we play Southampton at home, maybe, or we might just completely forget about it. And
that might be one to forget. Yeah,
not do one that week.
Yeah.
Right, going on to Southampton's cover star, the programme. Now, it's a bit of no, it's not a curveball, really. You do sometimes get managers on the front of programmes, and it was the newly installed Southampton manager who was on the front of this programme because they just sacked Stuart Gray after a terrible start to the season. I said it was only the beginning of the season. They'd only played 8 games. He'd won 2 of the first 8 games, but they'd sacked him. And this was the first game for our opponent's new manager. And it was their first season at St Mary's as well. So who do you think was the front of the programme?
I would say that would be, if it's their new manager, I would say that's Gordon Strachan, probably.
It was good. Look at him. Look at him. Golden Gordon Strachan.
It is. Look at that. Look. Yeah.
Actually, here's another link between Stuart Gray, the outgoing manager of Southampton, and Ipswich Town, the current Ipswich Town team who will be playing this weekend.
Yeah.
During his brief tenure as manager, Stuart Gray broke Southampton's transfer record. Now, who did he sign for a fee of £4 million to break their, at that point in time, transfer record, with links to the current Ipswich Town team? And the current England.
Yeah, of course. Oh, right. So I have cheated and obviously took a quick scan through through the team which I've got here. It's one Rory Delap then, yeah.
It was, yeah. He signed Rory Delap.
£4 million. Look, it's worth that for the long throw for the assists, isn't it? Got to be.
Yeah, £3.5 million worth of long throws and £500,000 of right wing back, right wing play. Yeah.
Absolutely, got to be worth that for the throws. Yeah.
So yes, as I say, this was our first match at the St Mary's Stadium. They just opened St Mary's Stadium for the start of this season, and we were there. 29,000 people. Uriah Rennie was the referee, and as I say, it was Gordon Strachan's sort of welcome party. Really, let me quickly get the teams up here on the screen for us. Southampton will go first. Any names there particularly that jump out? There's probably a name which doesn't appear in this or indeed the next game, certainly from the starting lineup perspective. He may well have been on the bench for one of the others. No Matt Letizia in
no, I think pretty much this was his swan song, was it? I think perhaps the first season at St Mary's, perhaps someone will correct me, may well have been his last there. I'm not sure. Names, I mean, you're looking at James Beattie, who probably he must have gone. They must have signed him for a fair few quid, I would have thought. Marion Pahaza, and obviously, looking at from England point of view, Wayne Bridge obviously played several times for England. Just looking through it, Stuart Ripley wide. I forgot he played for him. To be fair, Stuart Ripley, obviously Premier League winger with Blackburn, but other than that, no real standouts really for me.
Functional, should we call that?
Yeah.
Let's have a look at our own. We lined up a bit like this. We played 5 at the back this day, according to the reports.
Yeah.
But it's a team that we can pretty much, certainly that second season team. We're starting to get used to when Peralta's around and Armstrong and Sereni are there now, aren't they?
It was good. Peralta was good, wasn't he? Peralta that season was in a in a struggling side. Well, side, let's face it, we know that ultimately went down. He was pretty good, wasn't he?
Yeah, and even in the highlights that Rich sent us through from his goal machine, you could see that he was pretty much at the centre of everything that we were doing, driving us forward through the middle of the pitch and jinking past
slight,
players.
wasn't he? Funny sort of player. Didn't not blessed, but one of these players, quick feet, very technically very good, quite slight. Wouldn't necessarily, from memory, was there a season? Was he was extremely had a lot of pace about him or anything like that? But just clever player, wasn't he? I think the word for him, clever, very good. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously a nailed-on cult hero by virtue of coming from Inter Milan and South America. That's 2 ticks in the box right there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, let's get on to the game. We were 2-0 down after 23 minutes, Dave.
Yeah, so again, look back at those guys, pretty rubbish goals. Right? The first header from Beattie seems to come serenely. What are you doing, man? Surely you can do better than there's almost slow motion in the corner, isn't it? And then, it's poor marking for the second goal. I think Beattie actually crosses it in, and Parhaz is only about 6 yards out and buries his header. So, yeah, and that was the run. We hadn't won since, if you remember that season. I think it was we hadn't won since 8 games. I think the Derby game, which I always call the Finidi George game. So yeah, it was it was just a constant struggle then. So to go 2-0 down then again against a team that if you were going to start picking up points, certainly you would hope to, was a blow. I can remember that. I wasn't there, but I can remember it well.
Yeah, as a renowned headerer of the ball, Marian Pahars, finding space in a box of about 6 of our defenders there and the goalkeeper, and still managed to.
Yeah, it's poor that one, wouldn't it?
Find a way to header it in. Yeah. But then we fought back just before half time, 37 minutes. The first of 2 goals from Mark Venus corners, he could whip in a corner, couldn't he, that boy?
Yeah. Yeah, he could. The first one's a weird one, isn't it? Because it's a box full of players and the ball is, if our marking for the Parhas goal was bad, their marking for the Stewart goal is nuts because the ball seems to only drop just outside our 6-yard box centrally and everyone's in the box. And he's just like, oh, okay, he's just got a free header and it seems to like go through the keeper in from 6 yards. So again, you're back in you're back in the game with a shout. But again, another terrible marking.
So we got to half time 2-1. George Burley wasn't happy. He made 2 changes at half time. He brought on Fabian Wilness and Richard Naylor for Chris Makin and Alan Armstrong, and it had an almost immediate effect. And we went 3-1 down, Dave.
And this is down to the keeper as well, isn't it? This one's terrible, really, isn't it? This is Parhas. Good from Parhas, I think, who gets the ball.
It's a good shot.
Yeah, it's a good, to be fair, good left foot shot. I think from memory, he was predominantly right footed, I think, from memory, but it's a good shot, but good height. Serenely he doesn't do anything with it. He just sort of like palms it down. I don't think it's even swerving or anything. And our nemesis, let's just put it, our nemesis to be, 6 months later or 4 or 5 months later, Paul Marsden, is it? Just is there on his Chris Marsden, isn't it? Yeah, is there on his, Paul Marsden's a mate of mine actually. Chris Marsden is basically on his knees, falling over in the 6-yard box just to nod it in. No, that wasn't great, was it? Not great from our most expensive player at the time.
Yes, at the time, yes, been broken a couple of times since in the last 2 or 3 months. But it wasn't long before we clawed one back 9 minutes later, 61 minutes. And the man who'd provided the assist for the first goal from a corner decided to take matters into his own hands here, Dave. I don't think now, you're the man with the dictionary definition of thunders. But yeah, do you want to talk us through Mark Venus's?
Yeah, this could well get in a thesaurus under the heading Thunder Bastard. See Mark Venus, 24th of October 2001. Well, I don't think it grazed. If it grazed the bar,
it's on its way up though. It's definitely
on its way up. So I think it's still content. It's still got to be in there. He just gets the ball in field. He just sort of strides forward purposefully, doesn't he? So you could see he wants to shoot, and he just absolutely larrups it. And it arrow, it's one of those. If he hits it from a good distance, we know the power he got on his left foot, but he's hitting this from 30 yards, and you're quite right, it's still going up as it goes past Jones. It arrows in the top corner, doesn't it? It's an absolute worldie of a strike, and what a game too. Christ knows how many fantasy points he'd have got that game. All right, as a defender conceded 3, but even so, 2 assists absolute thunder bee. Yeah, and absolutely, you could just see, immediately, we're back in the game 3-2, and here we go. But yeah, I mean, I can't recall us. I mean, that season is perhaps a bit of a blur, all going through that season. There were some good goals that season. I remember Sereni's overhead kick George's Fanidi's overhead kick at Spurs, and one or two. Oh, and the Fanidi chip against Sunderland. But this one was, it's got to be the best, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny, we were talking before we started that, these goals, certainly the away goals, you don't really remember. I don't particularly remember the Stewart headers, to be honest.
No.
But yeah, this is one of those ones where once you see it, you think, oh, yes, of course, yeah, that goal. And he was one of those players, when you don't know, we're probably breaking over old ground here, but in terms of being able to make the step up to the Premier League. And me and my friends happened across Mark Venus one Sunday evening in the Dedham sun. And this was before we got promoted to the summer that we got promoted.
Yeah.
And we had a chat with him, and he didn't think he'd get a game in the Premier League. He thought this was, he'd done his job to get us there.
Yeah.
And now he'd be overtaken and replaced, etc. But he just went from strength to strength.
If you remember, he was just a make weight in the Steve Sedgley deal, wasn't he, really?
Yeah.
Mark Venus. Oh, okay, yeah, heard of him. Leicester, been around. Yeah, I think he's got quite a decent left foot. Definitely a make weight in that Sedgley deal. And I mean, what a signing. Yeah, gave us some great, obviously that promotion year, and obviously this year, we're talking about as well, gave us some unbelievable, those 3 seasons, great service. And yeah, probably for him, Wembley apart, this goal must have been up in his top 2 or 3 highlights, you would have thought.
Yeah, absolutely. So 3-2, 10 minutes or so later, we draw it back to 3-3. As you said at the beginning, Dave, there's plenty of goals in these 2 games that we're going to talk about, and the 6th one's coming up, and it's not an unfamiliar Stewart type header. This one, was it? It's a header I've seen a few times before. We may see a similar
we may see a
mirror image after the break.
One. Yeah, it's so clever, wasn't he? Because he makes that run, and it's an angled header from the edge of the 6-yard box. So he's glancing it, isn't he? But these goals were the one perhaps we're about to describe in a little while, perhaps. It's incredible. He just seems to generate so much power on it, doesn't he? He uses. I mean, Venus's corners weren't hung up there, weren't they? When Venus took a corner, it was driven in, swung in with purpose, and he just gets a great angle on it, like almost an angle from the 6-yard box. And again, I watched that again last night. Keeper probably should do better, and it kind of goes over him. But I just think he's surprised by the power of it. The power he was able to get on it. But that's probably down to, as I said, the delivery from Venus.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's how it finished. It finished 3-3. And as I said before about watching the highlights that Rich provided to us, it does look like Paul Jones did keep them in the game to a certain extent.
Oh, he did. He was a hell of a save from Wilness, I think I saw.
Flying here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, that season was weird, wasn't it? Honestly, I know. Look, now it's all forgotten now. Obviously, Blanc gone, but how did we? I mean, that was our 8th game of what was ultimately a 15-game run, winless run since that Derby game, the Fanidi 2nd game of the season. 9 losses and 6 draws. So you think, getting towards Christmas, and we'll no doubt cover this. I won't mention the game, but getting towards Christmas, you think, we're comfortably, we're going to be down by bloody
dead and buried.
February, March. This is going to be 94, 95 all over again. Just incredible.
This is how it looked after the event, and obviously not much changed.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Not much changed. But as you say, Dave, we'd got to 10 games and had only won one of our first 10 matches, but still found ourselves out of the bottom 3.
It was kind of weird because look, even looking at the goal difference, I seem to remember we were just competitive in all these games, weren't we? Honestly, I can't remember us getting outplayed in not that early part of the season. We just kept finding ways to lose by the odd goal in 3 and stuff like that, didn't we? Can you remember that? I think so, didn't we? It was just, and we obviously was this game before the. Well, obviously it was, yeah. Then, not long. Of course it was, yeah. I guess not long after that, you had the Stewart injury, I suppose, didn't you, and stuff like that. And that's when it really thinks, Jesus, But yeah, incredible. And I must say, talking about with a reference to Stewart, and again coming up in a little while, he had rather a liking for Southampton away, didn't he?
Well, he did. And that'll take possibly, you know, we'll be back after this message from our friends at Atwell's, but you can probably have a wild stab in the dark at which other Southampton away match we're going to have a chat about in just a second.
Blue Monday is proudly brought to you in partnership with our friends at Atwell Solicitors, your ideal legal partner for work on property or business law. Their client care has repeatedly been recognised as outstanding, and they are people-focused with a plain English approach which sets them apart. They have offices in Ipswich, Colchester and London, and to find out more, head to atwells.com.
Yes. So, in terms of the other Southampton away match from the annals of Ipswich Town history, we're going back about, 6 months to Monday, April the 2nd, my dad's birthday. Monday, April the 2nd, 2001. So, yeah, we've spoken about October. Now we're going back a few months to April. The business end of the season, shall we say. Now, before we get our league table up, number one, Dave, it was the winners. Now, I know you're a keen viewer of this particular TV program. The winners of Pop Stars were number one in the charts. Did they have? Now, I might be getting my
this Pop Stars, was that was the forerunner of X Factor, yeah?
Yeah, I believe so. Now, did it have the girl, the Norwich fan, the blonde-haired Norwich fan girl in the group, or was that another one? I might be leading up a wrong path here.
So there's two groups I'm thinking of, and I think they both had number ones, if that's what you're saying. One was Liberty X?
Not that one.
So Hearsay was the other one.
Correct. Now, don't bother putting anything in the chat about whether I got that right about the blonde-haired Norwich supporter. I don't.
I think you're right, wasn't? Oh no, I'm thinking of because one of those, no, wasn't one of those type of bands. One of them, her father or uncle played for Town. It was Hannah Spirit, but I think she was in.
Oh,
not one of these. What's the
Liberty
band?
X.
No, the other one.
S Club 7.
Yes. She was in
ABBA.
that group. Yeah, no,
Brotherhood of Man.
7. Her uncle, I think, was Eddie Spirit that played for Town.
That's who I was thinking of then.
So if we're saying Hearsay, I only know one, Pure and Simple, wasn't it?
It was Pure and Simple.
Yeah, you kind of gave out. Yeah, I'd never have got that in a month of Sundays.
You were more concentrating on the Afro Man back catalogue, weren't you?
I was.
You were delving deep into his back catalogue at this particular moment in time. Right, okay. Having depressed ourselves with the league table from the beginning of the next season, we're going to go back, I say, 6 months and look at the table before our game against Southampton at the tail end of the 2000-2001 season. Now, I'm looking at the bottom. I can't say, hold on, Bradford, Coventry, Man City, a bit further up. There we go. We find ourselves in 5th position.
To be fair, Southampton are having a half-decent season, aren't they? They really are.
Yeah. With a game in hand as well. If you look at a game or two in hand against the people above them.
Pushing up to 7th, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So as I say, we found ourselves in 5th. Man U, Arsenal, Leeds, and Liverpool, the teams above us, and Sunderland, the team in 6th at that moment in time.
Yeah.
And quirk of fate, cover stars for our program. I sort of gave it away in the previous match, but again, it was a manager. It was a new manager who just taken over.
I know what you're going to say.
From Glenn Hoddle.
It's Stuart Gray, isn't it? That was his. What symmetry! What symmetry there! Yeah.
So we had Stuart Gray's first game in charge against us, and then Gordon Strachan's first game in charge against us 6 months or so later. And Stuart Gray, obviously, during his brief tenure, had broken their transfer record by signing Rory Delap for £4 million, 3.5 million of which was for his long throws, etc., etc., etc. So yes, it was. Glenn Hoddle disappeared to Tottenham, I believe it was this time. So Stuart Gray taken over, and it was our first match at St Mary's, the match we just spoke about, and this was obviously, as a result, our last match at the Dell and the last ever floodlit match
I was going to say that it must have. So getting into April must have been one of the very, very final. I think the final game, Letitia. I think it was against Arsenal. I seem to think Letitia scored. Funny enough, a bit of a worldie, I think. But one of the last games, and obviously an evening game, so floodlit game. What I remember about this game was trying to follow it unsuccessfully. I was in Moscow. And I was trying to follow it unsuccessfully from Moscow. Unfortunately, funnily enough, couldn't find any pub that was or anywhere that a hotel or anywhere that was showing it in Moscow. So I seen it was like, Christ, 2001. Would it have been texting? Possible? Would it even be?
Yeah, of course it would have been. Yeah, it would have cost you. It would have cost you like 20p or 30p or something.
Yeah. It was probably probably on my business phone, obviously. So I think it was probably getting random texts, maybe then, I don't know. I can't even remember, but I might have even phoned. It might have even been 2 or 3 phone calls to home at strategic times of the game, sort of thing. But interesting to see how the two sides had sort of changed in those 6-7 months.
Yeah, well, let's get the Southampton team up here. Look, it's not a dissimilar team as you probably would expect. Dean Richards was playing. Centre half for Southampton.
Sad what happened to him. Died far too young.
Yeah, but very similar. Dan Petrescu was there before he had that animal show on BBC One.
Hey.
But similar centre midfield. And very similar looking names apart from a couple, really.
Yeah, and they're £3.5 million long throw experts not there yet. Of course, hang on. No, we're talking.
Yeah, he hadn't signed him yet. He didn't sign him on the day he joined.
Had he? No. Yeah, of course he hadn't quite signed.
Whereas ourselves again, you can close your eyes and guess what the team is sort of. Titus Bramble alongside John McGreal at the back. We played a 5 in midfield, or certainly three central midfielders. Jamie Clapham was playing centrally at this point in time, and Scoey was predominantly on the right hand side with Royster on the left. But it was and a bombing left back, as we shall no doubt be talking about.
And just reading the notes, just reading in general further about this game, looking back on some of the notes on this game online, and most significantly, Sven, God rest his soul, was there that night, supposedly running his eye over our number 10.
Maybe he should have scored. What, number 10, number 11?
Number 11. Sorry.
Let me just double check.
No, sure he was. Yeah, so he was, yeah.
Maybe he should have scored 4. Then he might have got into the squad, mightn't he? Right, Dave. Shall we? I think before we get onto the goals themselves, I think Royster had already hit the crossbar. He sort of had a shot from in front of the dugouts. Was it right on the halfway line or very close to?
He had two. He had his sights that night. So he had one. That was second half, I think. I think that might have been second half, where he launches a free kick from in front of the dugout.
Yes, you're right. Actually,
and we'll get to that. But if you hear the Sky commentary, I forget might have been Trevor Francis who's summarising on Sky. As soon as he hits it, ball's in the air, he's going, sort of thing. I'd say that's in. That's in. And then Jones is scrabbling. I mean, it's an incredible effort. But he hasn't even, what I think is perhaps just as good a one a little bit later when he lets the ball run across him, and it's this left foot angled volley, which Jones makes an absolute superb save from. Yeah, again, Royster had that in his locker, didn't he? He was technically so gifted, wasn't he? What a player.
Yeah, and as you say, when he was on it, when he had the bit between his teeth and he fancied it that evening or that day, he was just such a joy to watch. And he wasn't he wasn't a very athletic looking guy at all, was he? He sort of waddled around, but his touch and both feet, either foot.
Oh, a class. I think the previous game, perhaps there was an international break in between. The previous game, he'd scored that free kick at West Ham to win the game 1-0.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, lovely player at that time.
Yeah, loved him.
Great acquisition. So yes, we'll get into so we had a couple of shots. Royce had already hit the post, and then let's think. Hridison played Clapham in about the 32nd minute, Dave.
it's such a good the build up to this goal. Stewart in the build up to this goal is in his own half, isn't he? It's absolutely superb, and the ball is switched, and there's as you quite rightly said, interplay on the left between Clapham and Haridason. I think it's Clapham that puts the final ball in, and again, whoever's summarising on Sky, I think it's Francis, basically says, "Well, hang on, look who's tapped that in. Stewart's tapped it in from like 3 yards, and he's just run 70 yards to tap it in." I mean, it was a really lovely constructed goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And that took us to half time. And at half time, the Saints fans unveiled a banner, according to reports, which said, quote unquote, "Hod, what a cock." And it was confiscated by police before the second half.
Well, yeah, almost equivalent of our bed sheet, obviously. But
I assume they're referring to the cockerel on the Spurs badge.
You would think that was a bit of a tongue-in-cheek thing there. Yeah. I've never had anything said again. One of my all-time favourites. But yeah, certainly in his latter managerial career, he didn't really cover himself in much glory, did he? But yeah, I did know that. I'd forgotten about that actually. Yeah.
So yeah, second half started, and this is as you rightly said, Dave. This is when Roycer had the early on in that second half, the shot from about 45, a free kick, I think it was, from about 45 yards.
It's a direct free kick, and everyone's sort of just ambling back, and all of a sudden he just takes a run and just launches it, doesn't he? Man, incredible.
Yeah. And then Matt Letizia came on, and just reading I think it was the maybe the Terrace report, looking as fat as he had in the reserve game at Portman Road earlier this season. So, as you said about his swan song in the previous game, sort of getting towards the end of his
I think it was. Oh wow! Had I known he'd been playing in reserve game at Portman Road, I would have gone and watched that. I would have gone. Yeah. God dear, what a treat that would have been.
Yeah, absolutely. The tinfoil hat was weighing heavy at this point in time. But 2-0. 2-0, Dave. Jermaine Wright took a short free kick out to Herman Haridason.
Oh, this is just ridiculous.
And off he went.
This is just crazy, isn't it? I think it's out. Again, I did a little bit. I think it's Al Khalej. Testament may have been back there. I can't remember. And I think Marsden. And he sort of kind of gets the ball. He's kind of going nowhere with it. All of a sudden, he had quite a big stride, old Herman, didn't he? He was quite a tall lad. And he just sort of opens up, doesn't he? Sort of goes inside and then knocks it one side, I think it's Marsden, goes round the other side, pings in a cross. And this has got, of its kind, this might be one of the best headers I think I've ever seen, because he's got no right to put where he puts it, where that ball ends up from where Stewart headers it. There's just no right for him to put it there, is it? It's absolutely brilliant. And again, like the goal we described in the previous game, again, it's a pace on the cross, but it's just the angle he gets on the header, and it just loops away from Jones. He's got no chance for the keeper. To get beat from a header. It's a good way out as well, isn't it, on the angle, I think. And you think, he shouldn't get beat from that. But it's just perfect. It's right at the top corner and just drops in, doesn't it? He is flying. And, yeah, 2-0 up. And like I said, you were absolutely flying, aren't you, then?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just that. And it's sort of a mirror image to that last goal that Stewart scored in that we just spoke about in the first game. It's just, as you say, sort of running towards the front post and sort of
directs it behind him. The hell of a goal. Yeah.
Yeah, fair play. And so, yes, 2-0. And we are on top. We're on fire. We've got our tails up, whatever phrase you want to use. And we're sort of running right a little bit now, aren't we? And then Matt Holland tripped in the area, and it wasn't quite a Kevin Pressman type penalty kick, this one, was it, Dave, to round off your hat-trick? If you're going to round it off, you're going to do it in some style?
I think if a player's, I think confidence is one thing in a player, and I think it's fair to say his confidence was pretty high at this point. I mean, he could do anything at this point, couldn't he? And it's just a class penalty. Just does he give? I think he might give Jones the eye a bit, doesn't he? But he just, runs up to the ball, little stutter, and it's a perfect left foot penalty. And it goes in slow motion. It's one of those ones when the keeper's gone, he's gone, and he's just, for Christ's sake, absolute mugged him right. Oh, it's a brilliant goal. It's a brilliant hat trick, and it's just incredible. I mean, what was going on about around that time when obviously spoke before that Sven was there. Predominantly, I think you'd think to watch Stewart, the goals he'd scored up to date, but by then, but he never just quite. I can't remember when we picked up an injury. I don't think he did after that, did he? I don't think so. I can't remember how he just never quite got a look in that season. And we all know the following season, he was still scoring goals at the early part of the following season. I think famously got overlooked for Michael Ricketts, wasn't it, from Bolton?
Yes, who went on to have a stellar international.
I mean, again, no disrespect, but flipping heck, you know. I mean, that was that result. It was just because if you remember, we picked up, hadn't we? Because that January and February of that season, of that, you know, that the first season, back in the Prem, 2000, 2001, we had a sort of fairly sticky January and February. Lost a few games, haven't we? Like 3 or 4 on the spin, I think. Thinking back about it, and we just started to pick up points. Like I said, I think the game before, I think there was a break the week before. The game before, we'd beaten West Ham. I think we'd had that win we spoke about the other week, actually, about Herman, the Bradford City Herman Swan dive. That win we had that. So we just started picking up points, and this was just icing on the cake. And I saw the Burley interview afterwards, and look.
Went up to third after this result. Yes, third with 7 games to go.
Absolutely crazy. I mean, the key when you look at that season, the key is we hardly drew we barely drew a game, did we? You know, it was. You can see it, can't you? Look at that.
Yeah,
and that's
the fewest in the league at that point
by far. Look at that, couple, and that is the difference. And I think we were only going to go on to draw one more after that, I believe, or maybe two more. But yeah, Burley interviewed afterwards, basically saying that actually mentioned UEFA Cup spot and said, look, UEFA Cup spots within our grasp, obviously at the moment, and he didn't actually. I think he did actually mention Champions League, but you know, we'll keep our heads down and see what happens. Well, yeah, superb.
Brilliant. And Marcus Stewart at that point was the Premier League's highest goal scorer. He's his 18th league goal of the season, but his 20th goal of the season all told at that particular point in time.
Yeah, interesting enough, after that, I don't think he scored in the remaining 7 or 8 games would have been. I don't think he's barely scored. I think he only might have scored one more. I think. Yeah. I'm sure he only. I say only what I'm talking about. I think he finished with 19 league goals. I think because he was pipped by Hasselbank.
He didn't get to 20. Hasselbank was second behind him,
wasn't he?
Yeah. At that point in time.
Yeah. I mean, just what a season, and you know, you look at that team, and for that team to finish where it did, there's no within our, you know, obviously standout performers for us. There's Stewart, obviously Holland. I thought McGreal was great that season. Was it McGreal had a really brilliant season that season? No real standout stars, wasn't it? It was just collectively, and again, looking at what's going on now, just really well coached. Momentum and really well coached, weren't they?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, memories from that. It's just incredible, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. And just one final bit of trivia before we go, Dave. The first Town player to score a hat-trick in the top division since 1985, which would have been mustachioed.
Kevin Wilson. Against Stoke, 5-0.
Don't know about that one, but yeah. Kevin Wilson was the last person to score a top-flight hat-trick.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's one there this season for Liam Delap. I'm sure there's one, don't you think?
Well, you know, maybe it's this weekend. You know, maybe Liam Delap's going to tie everything together from his £4 million
from his dad
record
channel
signing.
His father's transfer fee.
Exactly. He's gonna mimic Marcus and do it for us this weekend. Who knows? Well, thank you very much, Dave. Really enjoyed that. Thanks for and everyone for indulging us, certainly for the second game of the two that we've just spoken about. Thanks for watching or listening. Hope you enjoy the show. And obviously, as ever, we shall be back Thursday for the pre-match, and we shall be back Sunday for the flagship, where we shall be talking about the Southampton match in some detail. This has been the Rewind Show on Blue Monday, an Ipswich Town podcast. We shall see you in a bit.